And joining me now is the mayor of New York City, at least for a little bit longer, Michael Bloomberg. Mr. Mayor, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. 55 days to be exact.
55 days. So congratulations. Your candidate in Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, eked out a victory, but you were also used against Democrats, and I want to get your reaction to your name being used in this attack ad put out in the Virginia Attorney General race by the NRA Political Victory Fund.
Mark Herring is supported by New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Herring will back Bloomberg's big government agenda: gun control, gun rationing, a ban on the most popular rifle in America.
Obviously, when one becomes active in politics, you get used to that sort of thing. But what did you think about you being used against Democrats?
Well, I'm not sure that the NRA, in retrospect, should have done that, because when we started, Mark Herring was something like 6 points behind. And at the moment, they have to have a recount. There's something like 100 votes separating the two candidates. Terry McAuliffe, if you think about this, Virginia is the home state of the NRA. That's where their headquarters are, south of the Mason-Dixon line. If I 20 years ago said to you that a Democrat who was F-rated by the NRA and unabashedly in favor of common sense gun checks, background checks, if I told you he could win governor, you would have laughed me out of the room. Truth of the matter is, this is a phenomenal victory. The people of Virginia have spoken, and the people of Virginia are going to be safer because of this.
I wonder, when you make your decision to get involved in a race like this, whether you weigh the cost benefit. According to the Virginia Public Access Project, your group, Independence USA PAC, gave $1.7 million to Terry McAuliffe, more than $3 million in Virginia races, and your candidate won. It was a close race. Knowledgeable Democrats tell me that your ad, specifically the one, I know you ran a number of ads, but specifically the one supporting greater restrictions on guns, it played really well in the inner suburbs right near D.C., where McAuliffe outperformed President Obama. But, they said, feelings about the NRA in the outer suburbs are more positive than negative, and the ads there were more of a mixed bag. And in southwestern Virginia, where McAuliffe did poorly, your involvement was used as a message point against him. How do you decide if your involvement will do more good than harm?
Well, the first thing is based on principles. What does the candidate stand for? This year, 12,000 Americans are going to get killed with handguns. 19,000 are going to commit suicide with illegal handguns. This is a carnage that only exists in the United States, and we've got to do something about it. McAuliffe won, which says a majority of the voters in Virginia want common sense background checks. They don't want to end the Second Amendment. They don't want to take away your right to bear arms or for sport or whatever you do, or to collect. But they think that we shouldn't be selling guns to criminals and people with psychiatric problems. And from my personal point of view, I represent New York City. When we stop people with guns, illegal guns, more of them come from Virginia, sadly, than from any other state. So that was one of the factors that also convinced me that I should put some money into this race.
We've seen some more tragic shooting events in the past couple weeks. The student in Nevada who shot his teacher, the LAX incident, the gunman who killed himself in Paramus, New Jersey a few days ago. In a few weeks, we're going to commemorate the one-year anniversary of the horrific incident in Newtown. Do you think President Obama has done enough to persuade Congress to push this issue that you've been trying to work on so hard?
I think the answer is no, he's not done enough, but yes, he is trying as hard as he can. We have not got this done yet, and it's not just up to the president. He has stood up and said we should have reasonable background checks. He's appointed Joe Biden as vice president, as his go-to guy. Joe Biden has been accessible to us. We talk strategy. Both of the president and the vice president talk about this, and they certainly are as big help as they can possibly be.
Governor Chris Christie was asked about the shooting in New Jersey yesterday. Here's what he said.
We need to get at some of the root problems of this, and we need to deal with folks who have mental health issues before they act out and are violent.
Now, Governor Christie's point on this is that it's not as sexy an issue, mental health, but that both Democrats and Republicans could find common ground on it and probably could have a real impact on all this gun violence at the hands of individuals who have serious emotional problems. Do you think that your efforts could be, if not better spent, at least well spent, addressing the mental health issue? Are we missing an opportunity here?
You're really talking about two things. When you have somebody like Newtown or Virginia Tech, clearly that person has psychological problems, and if we knew, and I don't know how anybody would tell, but if you knew in advance that he could go out and kill people, of course we would try to bring them in and make sure they get medical care and don't let them back on the streets until we think they're safe for society to be walking the streets. What Governor Christie's talking about is the person that takes an automatic weapon and kills many people. And yes, I'm very much in favor of trying to find those people and provide help and get them off the streets. But keep in mind, the number of people killed in the big splashy things that you use for wall-to-wall coverage on CNN, that's not where most people are killed. Most people are killed one or two at a time on the streets of our cities all over this country.
Let's turn to the New York City race last night. Democrat Bill de Blasio won handily. You chose not to endorse anyone in this race. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it certainly seems like you might have some concerns about the mayor-elect's position, especially on issues such as stop and frisk, perhaps raising taxes. You met with him this morning. What did you have to tell him?
Well, Bill de Blasio and I aren't going to agree on everything, but we certainly agree on a lot of things. I had a great hour-long meeting with him this morning where he and I just one-on-one talked about how we can help in the transition. We've created a book for him, an electronic book, where he can look at every agency and see what's needed and the people that are there and what the issues are that he's going to have to face short-term and long-term. He and I agreed to get together periodically over the next 2 months. Keep in mind, I have a very big vested interest in making Bill de Blasio an even better mayor than I was, having his administration even be better than ours was. We've built a lot. We've given them a lot to work with, as did our predecessors. But the bottom line is I'm going to live in New York City, and I want Bill de Blasio's administration to be successful and our administration do everything to transfer everything we've been doing over. And then he's got to make his own decisions. And some things will look easy, and then when he gets into them, he'll find them more difficult, and maybe he'll change his mind. And that's exactly what we did, the same thing.
It may not surprise you that I know a lot of New Yorkers who are worried about Mayor de Blasio, worried that after 3 terms of Bloomberg and 2 terms of Giuliani, de Blasio might make New York a less hospitable place to live. What do you tell those individuals? Because I'm sure you hear from a lot more of them than I do.
Well, my memory may be faulty, but I don't think it is. 12 years ago, when I got elected, there were a lot of people that said, oh, he could never keep us safe the way Giuliani did. And in fact, Rudy brought down crime dramatically, and we took that and we've brought it down dramatically again, more. And so you never know, and I'm optimistic. I'm sure everybody's not going to be happy with every decision that Bill de Blasio makes, and they're not happy with every decision I made.
So across the river in New Jersey, Governor Christie last night was reelected in a blue state with 60% of the vote. What lessons do you think Republicans, your former party, should take from his win?
Well, I think what the lesson for this whole country, whether it was Christie or McAuliffe, both of them were centralists. They could work across the aisle. They understood that democracy is coming together to create something that's great for most and okay for those are the outliers. And being an obstructionist or being a radical, the voters rejected that in both cases.
There were some initiatives last night on marijuana that I want to get your reaction to. Colorado will now tax the drug. Portland voters in Maine approved legalizing recreational marijuana for residents 21 and older. There have been some medical marijuana bills that have gone through the state legislature. Do you think you could ever support legalization of marijuana?
Probably not. I think it's a bad idea. If the dealers can't sell marijuana and make money, the bad guys are going to sell more drugs that are much more potent. If people use marijuana after a while, they're going to say, well, I'm not getting the kick I want, and they'll move towards prescription drugs, which are a big problem across this country, or things like crack and cocaine.
Lastly, Mr. Mayor, what role do you think you're going to be playing in the 2016 elections? I have a tough time imagining you just going softly into that good night.
Well, one thing I can guarantee you, I will vote.
But you will be playing some role, one would think, whether it's activism and perhaps some other role, running perhaps for some sort of office.
Let me guarantee you 2 things. Number 1, I will vote, and number 2, I won't be running.
You won't be
in terms of something in the middle, it depends who's running and whether I want to support them, whether I want to get involved. I've got a lot of things to do. I'm looking forward to starting January 1st. I'm going to take a quick vacation, and already I've got more things to do going forward than I can handle. In fact, I've got to start learning how to say no to new things.